You don't know the audience until we start.
Yeah, we've already started.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah, it's.
Very good. That one, it's very up front.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Oh, so that mouse is for that computer?
Yes.
Oh, cool. That's neat.
Yeah.
Oh, fancy. Barry, we can start whenever you'd like to start.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. We'd like to thank everyone that came out today, beautiful day. And we'll get started right off with roll call.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining us today. Let's see, starting off the roll call, we'll ask who's here from Bullock County. Mr. Griffey's in attendance. Anybody from City of Charlestown? City of J-Town, I know Matt was gonna miss today, so we'll miss J-Town this month, I believe. City of Jeffersonville,
Andy Crouch.
Andy. City of New Albany, I saw Claire. Hi, Claire.
Claire Thompson. Hi.
City of Shively,
Maria Johnson.
thank you for joining us, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
City of St. Matthews. We got all sorts of St. Matthews in the room today. We got Mayor Tonini and Councilman Bowling in the room today. Anyone from Clark County? We'll let the record reflect that Mr. Cubby Purcell from City of Charlestown has entered the room. Floyd County.
Nick Creevy.
Hi, Nick. NDOT. I saw Kathy. Where'd she go? Saw her earlier on here earlier. All right, Kathy was joining us, Kathy McCallum, so maybe she'll join us. Maybe she had to jump off for a
She was
second.
just on a few seconds ago.
I know she was. I saw her. And I was on a meeting with her earlier today. Jefferson County League of Cities. Who do we have from KYTC? I think we have a few.
Jason Sawala.
Hi, Jason.
Matt Bullock, District 5.
Hi, Matt. All right, moving on. Louisville Metro Government. Hi,
Nicole George.
thanks for joining us. Did I see Mike on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us. How about Oldham County?
Jim Urban.
Hey, Jim. Town of Clarksville.
Kevin Beatty.
Hi, Kevin. About Tark.
Present.
Hi, Carrie. How about any of our advisory members, namely FAA or FHWA, FTA? We already talked to Matt from District 5. Let's see, anybody from FHWA? I'm seeing them on there. They may join us. Thought they might join us, but thank you all for joining us.
This is Nick Vale with Federal Highway 310.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
And as a reminder, those online, it looks like almost everybody does have their camera on. When it's time to vote, we appreciate it if you turn that camera on so that we can be above board in terms of the voting procedures here. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Vern. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item number 2 is the minutes of the last meeting. Everyone had a chance to review those. If so, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any changes or anything? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 3 is the public comment period. Greg?
Did not receive any comments prior to the meeting by email, and I don't see anybody in person here from the public. Nothing in the Q&A either, so I don't believe this time we have anything.
Okay, number 4 is the public involvement report. Greg again.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'll go through the transportation outreach report from, this will be from April. It says March, but it's actually April, sorry. Go through the social media analytics first. Numbers were really strong this month from Facebook. That was helped mostly by 2 paid advertising campaigns that we did for the MTP as well as the TIP and Amendment 1 to our TIP. I'll have a little bit more of that here in just a few minutes. Twitter was down just a little bit, but Instagram back up again. That's good to see. Website analytics go. Numbers were a little down compared to last month, but still strong and still holding pretty steady. We had 2 events. Last month we went to Tree Fest at Joe Creason Park, as well as the Jeffersontown Business Expo. As I mentioned, Amendment 1, Chris is going to have a little bit more of that here just shortly, but we did our typical outreach for that, which is an email campaign sent to over 1,700 people. We had 489 people open that with 31 people clicking the links. Social media had over 23,000 impressions, over 3,000 engagements. That was really good since we just did 1 paid advertisement during that time. We did publishments in the MPO libraries as well as our business association and chamber newsletters. We received 1 comment and we received 4 likes on 2 different projects. We also held a virtual public meeting on May the 9th. We had a lot of comments from Tree Fest as well as the Business Expo. So they range from all over the city in the metro area as well as the KIPTA region itself. I mean, we had some from Prospect. We had some comments from South Louisville, West Louisville, all over. Typically, most of them provided on connectivity. You can see a couple people asking for light rail again. We hear that quite a lot. Repairing potholes. There were some concerns at TARC stops. Sidewalks needing repair in Old Louisville. Gene Snyder west of I-65 needing repair. Person was concerned about cars parking on sidewalks, semi-trucks parked in neighborhoods and driving through neighborhoods. Again, more about potholes, a West End pedestrian bridge into New Albany. Somebody asked for a 4-way stop at Trevilian and Lakeside. More connectivity there in the south end, asking for sidewalk gap from Mahoney to the Dixie Highway. Sidewalks on Dixie Highway, neighboring areas in the 40258, 40272 zip codes. More sidewalks downtown. We got ones that I mentioned, crosswalk 42 from the schools to the Goshen Branch Public Library, and also someone asking for a bus stop closer to 4501 Springdale Road. We did get some social media comments as well. One of them was 65 South from Gene Snyder to E-Town needs some serious work. The only decent, only decent lane is the fast lane. Fix the interchange ramps at I-65 and Gene Snyder, then fix the Snyder westbound from I-65 westbound to Dixie Highway. This is the worst road ever. It's known by the people that drive it the most as the washboard. That comment received 9 likes. And also I had 2 replies. One of them was, I said, I remember when I was a kid, stomach hurt when we drove over that section of the Snyder. I'm 30 now, it's still the same. And another person said, or hear me out, finish the roads that are already torn to shreds before new projects, then work on those. I can attest to that one on 65 or on Snyder going past 65 because I drive that quite often. And with a person with a boat trailer, it is a bumpy ride. That wraps up my report for the month. Take any questions anybody has.
So I have a question. First of all, I just want to commend you guys. I'm sorry I missed your Tree Fest.
Sure.
But I think this is really exciting and spot on with where we need to be. And I love to hear and see the comments. I'm interested to know, what do we historically do with these comments?
So I will
Where do
take,
they go and how do they get used? Can you relay something like, because we heard this, we did X?
absolutely. So I will take these comments and we put them on our website. We have a special section in our public participation section that we have these websites so that the project sponsors can go through and look at those and review those as needed each month. So you can see those comments. And I mean, I know Amanda Dethridge is online, but she's in the other room, but she has talked about, they've used those before to try to get better ideas of where the issues are, since we're hearing them so much here in And a lot of times KIPTA is not responsible for a lot of these concerns. It's more the project sponsors. So that's why I put those out there. If they're project specific, a lot of times I will send them to the project sponsors out email wise and just let them know.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to number 5. Urbanized area, it's a summary of the 220 census urbanized area boundaries. Chris?
You all. So, this is the first time that I'm presenting on this topic to the TPC, but I have been through a series of presentations for the TTCC. So some of this information many of you have seen before. So we're talking about the 2020 census urbanized area boundary update and also the FHWA adjusted urban area boundary update that we would like to contribute to. Quick summary. So like I said, I've been doing some of these presentations at TTCC between January and May. I think we did 4 presentations. We discussed the census criteria changes, the data, the maps, and some guidance as they were communicated to us. Some of that stuff, the census released the information initially on December 29th of 2022. We didn't have the maps until sometime in January, and things have just been kind of unfolding, and really some things are still unfolding. Discussions on what changes to the boundary could imply based on previous updates and the new criteria occurred, because some of this information, as we were getting it, we weren't really sure what it would mean. We can only go with what we know from the past and what we've been communicated to this time. We reviewed the previous census UAB updates and the FHWA adjusted boundary, which kind of more casually, the census updates we'd like to refer to as the jagged boundary, and the adjusted boundary is the smooth boundary. It extends beyond the jagged boundary. And we discussed some criteria and planned a strategy, which I'm going to go over with you all today for submitting a new adjusted urbanized boundary to the state and federal highway department. Some key considerations. The Census Bureau makes these UAB updates every 10 years. This time, the total area in the 2020 urbanized area decreased by 76 square miles compared to 2010. Mount Washington and LaGrange are now separate UZAs. UZA adjustments are not required, but they're possible through collaboration with the federal highways and state transportation agencies, and also the local and regional jurisdictions. Census UAB adjustments are not allowed, and the money determined by the UAB size and shape doesn't change with the adjusted urban boundary, as far as we know. So here's a little history. This is the jagged boundary starting from the far left. That was in 2000. So you can see in 2010 in the middle, there were some changes, and they absorbed the Ohio River, stands out quite a bit. And then now you can see in 2020, we've lost a lot of area toward the west in Indiana. On the Indiana side, we've lost area, and then also Mount Washington and LaGrange are their UCAs. This map here I've shown many times. Kind of tries to put it in perspective. The areas in red, the areas that we lost this time, and the areas are green are brand new additions, and the area in yellow is the unchanged region. So the one guideline that we're certain of for adjusting the boundary is that we include the entire jagged boundary. Beyond that, I've been trying to research previous guidance And what I did find, and if anybody knows about new guidance that I should be aware of, please let me or Andy know for sure. But this is our guidelines that we're gonna go off of based on previous years. And I went over this with the TTCC as well. Mainly, we have to keep it one single contiguous area without any holes or discontinuities. So a lot of that jagged area with little islands will absorb that. No rural area can be contained in the outer urban boundary areas that may be outside of the municipal boundaries with urban characteristics. Those can be included, such as like parks, maybe golf courses, things like that. We want to encompass all large traffic generators within a reasonable distance of the urban area. The transit services should be considered. In our case, most of them are, I believe, all in already. But that's a consideration. Physical location should be easily discernible in the field. So what that means, we want to make sure that the boundaries along either roads, streams, some sort of physical feature. Worst case scenario, if it can't be, I would go off of parcel lines. We want to minimize irregularities. We need to not delineate in the center of divided highways. We need to either be all in or roadways should be clearly assigned to the primary urban area. And also for the access controlled ways, we either need to take all of the ramps or none. Just things to be consistent with. And this is not a final draft by any means. It's just a little bit of a sample map. So our approach, we're going to use an interactive comment map that we've developed with our GIS staff here. And we have meetings scheduled already, tentatively for May 30th through June 1st. We have a meeting with Clark and Floyd counties in Indiana, and then we have a meeting in Bullitt County, a meeting in Oldham County, and a meeting at Louisville Metro for Jefferson County. Once complete, our drafts will be submitted to KYTC and NDOT respectively, and then the state highway departments would submit the final recommendations to the FHWA. So that's the process that we anticipate taking. These are some of the layers that we have in our mix that we're going to go over with everyone participating. So to inform our decisions, we're going to have previous vintages, population change layers, the TARC routes, the parks, the functional road classification, and then of course the features like the rail and the hydro in the street. Little recap of the timeline. So like I said earlier, December 29th was in 22 was when the census gave their release. So December 29th of 23, the adjustments to the urban boundary should be approved by the state transportation agencies and FHWA division office. FHWA delegates the authority to approve adjusted urban area boundaries from the Secretary of Transportation to the FHWA division administrators. They will consider all urban area boundaries final as of April 15th of 2025 and use the original 2020 census boundaries for all urban areas that have not been adjusted. So as I said earlier, we don't have to do this. It's not a requirement, but we intend to do it so that they don't revert it back to the jagged boundary. And then December 29th, 2025, the changes to the highway functional classification associated with the census defined urban area boundaries. Those should be approved by the state transportation agency and FHWA division office.
Chris, if I might jump in here, KYTC has informed us that they need these probably by, what they say, June 10th at the latest? Or some point,
This is the 15th.
15th, mid-June at the latest. That's why we're doing it now, even though you see dates that are way out in the future. The time is now for this. And then
Yeah,
we're
because
already,
if the highway offices need everything to be complete by December 29th,
Right.
working with the first ones and 13 minutes.
Understanding that in, for our Indiana friends, that's just now kind of getting underway in Indiana. So Kentucky's due in a week or two.
Yeah.
Indiana, they're gonna be, maybe this summer, let's say.
And so we're requesting action, TPC action, to proceed with our plans to have these meetings and create these drafts.
Yeah, if I can clarify a little bit there, that what we're asking for is your all's approval of these concepts, this process. We must submit it on the Kentucky side at least before our next meeting, of course, right? And so, our intention is to, these meetings that are next week, to iron it out in each county or in Indiana, 2 counties at once, and then submit those. So that's
right.
the approval we're seeking, the permission to do just that. That is to take the individual county ones. And when we're done with the Bullitt County one and the Oldham County one, the Jefferson County one on the Kentucky side, ship it over to Frankfurt. Similarly, in Indiana, we'll do the same.
That's right.
And I just wanted 2 points for clarification. This doesn't seem to have any substantive change on our process or the structure of the policy committee, nor do we think it would change any federal funding at the highest level.
So, no, the smoothing does not. The
Okay.
smoothing, per past precedent, let me be real clear about that. In prior decades, there are no funding determinations. You don't get any more funding if you smooth it way out into the country as you would if you just said, I don't care about this process, I'm gonna take the jagged boundary, right? The dollars are based on the jagged boundary that shrunk by 16% or whatever. That's gonna hurt. That'll sting soon enough. But no, there are no funding.
But the jagged boundary, the primary jagged boundary shrunk because of growth in the other nearby urbanized
Not
areas.
necessarily, no, the jagged boundary shrunk because of what turned out to be a significant change to the census criteria
Mhm.
for what's dense enough to be urban. They shifted from, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, from a population-based thing to a household-based thing. And so what has happened in the Louisville area and presumably all the areas,
Mhm.
basically, if you stayed the same, you kind of shrunk around the fringe, right? Because that's what's borderline dense enough, right? And so all the areas seem to have shrunk. It's very counterintuitive because Mount Washington and LaGrange and even Charlestown areas are among the fastest growing portions of this region. There's no doubt about that. Nobody here is going to disagree with me. I'm pretty sure about that. But I think that's a verifiable fact. However, the change in the criteria has created this phenomenon where the Louisville region has shrunk. There are likely to be consequences there in terms of the dollars that we'll get going forward to do projects. I mentioned that before, I know, at least the PTCC, and I think this body as well. But in this case, this is mostly to do with functional classification, rural urban designation. So it does matter, and cities and counties should take it and use it, and let's be smart about it, right? Because we make funding decisions internally about how we're going to design a certain road, if it's a rural or urban type of roadway, that matters. And so to say that $0 matter, it would matter, that future funding decision over the next decade, it does matter. And we want to make something that just flat out makes sense, flat out, right? It doesn't make sense that to break this region up into 4, right? When that doesn't make sense really at all. And so,
So potentially there are impacts, but it also doesn't seem like there's any action that we could take at this level to make any difference on those impacts, because the criteria has changed at the federal level. These designations are what they are. We tried to make the most logical sort of boundaries based on what we know at the.
that's correct. And so to add maybe a little context, our friends in Evansville are going through a similar thing, but maybe even more severe, where the Evansville urbanized area, since it's defined, is no longer a Kentucky urbanized area. The shrinking of these things with the new criteria has made them an Indiana exclusive area. And so there's major repercussions there, in terms of their, are they Kentucky and PO going forward even? I think that's more in doubt than ever, right? I don't know the latest on that, and I don't want to speculate on that. It's none of our business necessarily. But the Mount Washington and LaGrange issues are exactly the same as the Henderson issue in Evansville. It's just that Mount Washington and LaGrange are in Kentucky and we're the core area. And we're very much a part of the last urbanized area boundary.
It's the TTCC presentation. So this criteria change, like essentially the way I see it is a change in the definition of urban, and some of their change that they made this time, the drastic change is a reversion back to the way it was pre-2000. So I think that in 2010, it was a lot easier to grow by their definitions, but the rules have sort of shifted as it affects us, but, you know.
And even the meetings that are set up. Bullitt County, I assume, I haven't seen anything when these meetings will take place. And it's gonna be next week. Have you all sent something out? I think I've got
We did.
it.
Yeah, I thought you set us up. with
Did I
that.
Yeah. Calendar, well, so. Remember,
Well, further,
if it did, then it'll show it and when it just.
all right. For context, we will be in Judge Summers' conference room there on Tuesday, May 30th at 9 a.m. Followed by
Tuesday.
May 30th. On May 31st, Wednesday, May 31st, we will be at we will be out in Oldham County. At the Oldham County Planning Conference Room. That's the big room in the fiscal court building, is it not, Jim?
Yes.
Thank you. And then on Thursday, the 1st, we're taking our show on the road, first to downtown at the 444 South Fifth Street building, in the first floor there, where we'll discuss everything Jefferson County related
What time?
at 9:30, excuse me, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock will be, yeah.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. We've got the room reserved apparently from 9:30 to 11:30, so we're thinking 10 to 11:30 type thing. And then that same afternoon, we'll cross the river for a meeting at 1 p.m. at the Clarksville Town Hall Conference Room, where we will meet with all the Southern Indiana jurisdictions.
So the cities that were, Mount Washington and Rams that were cut out, again, we've got issues with that, but they don't have a separate meeting. Mount Washington.
No, so at that meeting, we have some things that we're gonna propose and not to jump the gun or spoiler alert. I think it's our opinion, as long as it's the powers that be in Bullitt County's opinion, to likely create one giant blob of an urbanized area in Kentucky, at least, right? Because that will put us back where we were last time.
This power to be would be on.
Okay, I assume so, and I imagine that's likely to be the case in hometown. So yeah, we'll talk more about that.
I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Thank
If
you.
there's an issue with the schedule.
No, I'm sure it's on, like I said, my calendar will tell me the day before where I'm supposed to be.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't mind Big Brother, or not sure. That's fine. Keep me going. Thank you.
So action is requested.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second, we have a motion and a second, all in favor,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, connecting Kentucky, the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Spencer?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm bringing to the finish line, connecting Kentucky in 2050, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update that we've been working on last three years, so basically since the last one concluded in February 2020. So just kind of a quick overview, what is a Metropolitan Transportation Plan? It is a long-range plan that deals, or what is connecting Kentucky in. It is a metropolitan transportation plan that deals with 5 counties: Clark and Floyd County in Indiana, and Bullitt, Jefferson, and Oldham, Kentucky. We deal with surface transportation, so roadways, buses, sidewalks, bicycles, commuter rail if we had commuter rail in the region, but not things like freight rail, airports, or water transportation. We are required to update, since we are a non-attainment area, our MTP every 4 years. So technically, our MTP currently, our long range plan currently has about a year left of life, but since we are updating the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program that Chris will talk about here shortly, we decided to go ahead and update the MTP as well. So we have, CK 2050. I'll show you the new cover. Greg did a good job on that. It's really good. So the process that we go through is governed by IJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And our role is to implement all the guidelines and regulations that act has identified, that previous acts like the FAST Act has identified, previous executive orders, and, directions from FHWA, FTA, the station. And, it is our goal to create this long range plan to figure out how much money are we going to spend in this region? What money is going to come in and what kind of projects are regionally significant in the region? That's like the big thing you see repeatedly in all the regulations, the regional significance of all these projects. So what's new and what's updated as part of this MTP update? Greg, if you want to click on that first link up there at the top. So we have the KIPTA GIS hub, and this was created not super long ago. Zach gave a big presentation about it. I think it was earlier this year, maybe last year. And essentially, this is a really nice data portal that has all kinds of different data that you can download. You can see like demographic data, trans data, pretty much anything that we've created our maps with. The data is available online for you guys to download, to look at. And a lot of this data went into project development and how we scored projects. So, we put it out there for future project development essentially, and just for the general public. I think it's really interesting. So, a lot of the public likes to look at a lot of the demographic stuff, where are the most dangerous intersections. Some of it's a little harder to navigate than others, but go back, Greg, and then scroll down a little further. There you go. We have the online resource center, which has been around for a while, and that's still updated. It contains the things that are up at the top, like the MTP project query, the TIP project query. You can see all of the MTP and TIP projects. Currently, both of those portals still show the existing TIP and the existing MTP. And once we adopt the updated MTP and TIP, they'll be updated with the new 2050 projects. The online resource center also has functional classifications of roads. It has our updated environmental justice areas, pretty much any of the maps, any of the data that went into project scoring is all in here. There's the new travel time index, bridge inventory. So, this is a really nice hub. It's really an expansion from the last MTP of that online resource center that was just that GIS kind of application. This has like multiple applications that you can click on, and they're interactive. You can zoom in, you can click on the different data points, whether they're road lines, whether they're actual points, and it'll tell you information like when the project's supposed to be completed, how much it's supposed to cost, how many wrecks are here, all kinds of different data stored on here. So I think this is a really good improvement over what we already had, which was, I think, pretty good. I know that we got a lot of foundation for having what we had before, and so anytime we make it better, I think that's great for the public and great for all of our project sponsors and users. You can go back on the PowerPoint, Greg, and then that middle link is just what we already have that exists, like when that link was on the GIS hub, and then we also updated the document itself. So the original draft, some of the figures and maps and tables were a little hard to see. You go ahead and click that link too if you want, Greg. And so Greg created this website and he took all of the figures, so all the maps, tables, charts, graphs, and put them on this website to make it a lot easier for our, maybe visually impaired, users to see. So you can click a couple if you want, Greg. You can zoom in on these a lot easier. They just look a lot clearer. Many of them in the MTP document itself, we did improve since the first draft came out in early March. But some of them were still a little difficult to see, and it just wouldn't format correctly in the document itself, like to get a better visual. So we thought this was a good kind of compromise. Now that MTP is a little bit more interactive, so if you're actually in the document itself, you can actually click on every single one of these and it'll take you straight to this website. So if you're already looking at it online, which is the primary way, I think almost everyone looks at it today and has for the last 3 or 4 years.
Spoiler alert, next time we present an MTP update or next time we hope to, it's probably just gonna be an all online thing. It's gonna be an MTP website. It won't, that's the next one, not this one, but the next one. So will there be more, there's more where this comes from, came from for the next MTP, right? That's the way this is going. Well, you don't need a 400-page document when we live in the modern world where everybody's just clicking and hunting online. So early spoiler alert.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, I think you can integrate so many more things in there. Like, so one of the tools we had used was Data Wrapper. That's where a lot of the charts and tables were made. It's a little more limited when you make them for like print use, which is why like some of them couldn't be scaled larger or smaller. But once we switch everything to be like fully online and have a dedicated MTP website, they're all interactive. You can download all the data into an Excel sheet that'll export with the click of a button. You can like hold your mouse over the different lines and it'll light up and it might even like pop up data that you have embedded in there. If you have pie charts, and it'll pull them out and you can see kind of like what each slice of the pie means. So whether it's like maybe it's a funding pie or maybe it's, how many miles of sidewalks do we have and there's a little line going up and bike paths and there's a different line and you can see like maybe by county and it'll show it. So I think that's kind of what we're pivoting towards, more towards that online digital MTP every day. So we kind of went ahead and adopted those tables and charts. So in the future, it'll be easier to integrate those online and they'll be. So there's the draft link that we had sent out. You click that, Greg. So here was like the website that we had set up for the public comment period, and it directed you to this, and it has the final draft of the TIP and the MTP. Click there. It's a pretty big document, so it takes a minute to load. So that I think in the future that'll be a better aspect of going to a website. It'll load much faster. Because it seems like we actually shrunk this document down a little bit, trimmed some of the redundancy. I think in the old one, the projects were probably listed in there like 3 or 4 full times. Now there's more circular references and less redundancy. So there's not, in the appendices, multiple project listings that are just kind of a different way to list the projects. But it's still 310-page document down maybe from 500 pages before. You can see, it looks really good. Greg did a really good job, but we added the NPA map because everybody really liked that. It was a tip, but at first it was hard to fit on here, but we found a way to kind of format the pages. So that's a change from what we sent the original draft out. That is, that's your draft. So All right, so, we made some changes. And I think I forgot to send you my most updated, PowerPoint, but it's not that big a deal. I have them listed here. So, I wanted to just go over the changes we had made since we sent out the original draft, just so we're not, trying to pull any, anything on you guys, and you don't want you to think that we didn't bring you all the information. So most of the changes were syntax and grammatical. I mentioned like the MPA map was missing. That wasn't intentional, so we added that back in. In the existing and future conditions section, we fixed some of the color schemes, some of the data ranges. None of the data and anything was changed. It was more just like visual, like changing the images to be easier to see. Changing the maps to be easier to see because some of them were really zoomed out to kind of capture the whole region, but maybe this one section is Kentucky specific, so we don't need all of Indiana in the map, so it's more zoomed in now, be easier to see. One project was removed. It wasn't supposed to be in there. We had already removed it and everything else. It just accidentally made it into the project listings themselves. And so that one was removed. That was pointed out by K1PC. And that was a project that had been superseded by another project, which was also was correctly included. So took that one out. And then there were 14 projects whose cost in the TIP and in the financial plan were correct. But in the project listing that had the old numbers before we did the call for projects and the project updates back in September, October. And so we just had to go in and correct all the those project costs. So a lot of them were typos, like you could see one number got left off or a number got flipped. And so like when we ran a query to make sure everything matched correctly, it pointed out those and we fixed them. And I double checked the financial plan was correct. They were right in there. So then there were a few things like in the appendices, the MTP amendment policy was left out. The pages were there for it, but it didn't get put in. So added that in. It's the same as the current one, which is updated information for CK 2050. The air quality analysis had some graphics and tables that had like formatting errors. Tanya pointed those out for us, so we fixed those. And then there were some changes that were scheduled, like adding the resolutions, which will get signed today. If CK 2050 is adopted, those go on the front. And then in the appendices, adding the public comments because they weren't available, of course, in the first draft, like that went out to get public comments. So those have been added in along with the public participation policy, and then the environmental consultation that Chris had sent out for the TIP and the NGP has been added as well. All right, so here's like the cover from the existing and future conditions section. This section contains demographic information, which is like jobs, people, households. It's all the socioeconomic data that goes into the model. It's included in here. You'll see like some maps that kind of depict like growth, population loss by 2050. There's the EJ areas and EJ population in the region. You have the environmental region resiliency section, and then the modal trends and conditions. That has your ETI, time index that we created not too long ago with Joseph. The LOS for the collectors and below that are harder to get data from. We use Street for that. We got the vision, goals, and impact section, and the highlights there are the vision, goals, performance-based planning, and the impact on performance goals. So these are those goals, objectives, and performance measures that were approved last August. These are all the ones that are federally required, like a lot of the safety ones, pavement condition ones, and then ones that are MPO created, like park ridership, rideshare ridership, maybe other safety targets that might not be federally required, but we care about as a region. And so we set those goals and objectives like here. They're included in this section as well. And then just kind of like how all the projects and project development and scoring and planning, how these goals impact the kind of the regional plan itself. So like if our vision is to improve safety, you know, we kind of explain what that means and how projects themselves actually, you know, we're striving to do that, so. That's in section 3. Section 4 is the investments. This is like probably one of the most important, if not the most important part of the NTP. This is where the projects are actually all listed. So you have the project listings. There are like 9 different subsections, 4 for Indiana, 4 for Kentucky, and then a joint transit section. So you have them divided into Indiana roadway and Kentucky roadway, Indiana bike ped, Kentucky bike ped, Indiana program, Kentucky program, and then Indiana maintenance, Kentucky maintenance. And like I said, these have all the listings. They have the project scores that we develop from our scoring process. They have the descriptions, the justifications, the names, where they're located. There's maps in every section with all the KIPTA IDs on them. The financial plan, so that's when we develop the financial plan with all the project costs. We looked at group project costs and what we think they're going to be by 2050, total project cost of all our projects currently in the MTP, and our expected resources by 2050, and made sure that our MTP itself was financially reasonable, which it was, and that's approved back in January. And then, you know, that recommended projects, that's the list of projects. So those are all the projects that made it in, that got scored. They could be scored. There were some that couldn't. Maintenance projects didn't necessarily get scored, but that's, you know, recommended projects are all the projects in the MTP. And, you know, just as a reminder, if a project in the region has or wants federal funds, it has to be in the MTP. Then you have the appendix E section, so that just has acronyms, public participation, which includes public comments, performance measures, goals and objectives and targets, the project evaluation rubric, so that's where you'll see kind of like the breakdown, how a project got its score, the environmental consultation that we had sent out to all the agencies that are on the list to receive that, like EPA, et cetera. The air quality technical memo and IEC minutes, so that's from our meeting we had in December, and the air quality assist that Randy did, and then supplemental reports, which includes, as a huge kind of list, just anything we referenced in the document that we thought like may be useful for someone like want to go to. So you got like hazard mitigation plans from Kentucky and Indiana, various transportation plans that have been developed by other agencies, you know, other things like that we develop in-house, like the actual environmental justice guide, project, the PMP, project management process. There's all kinds of different documents in there. They're all linked, so you can find all the links online, whether they're on our website or on third party's website, KYTC or Google Metro, and then the amendment policy. Here's the public comments. Here's a map of all the comments we received. There were 84 comments. It ran from March 24th to April 22nd. We developed an outreach strategy that, according to our guidelines from the participation plan, and we use the traditional, you know, mediums for generating awareness. That Greg usually talks about every month. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, email, campaigns. We did put out flyers to all libraries, Chamber of Commerce. We tried to send them out to everybody that work with on a regular basis, so that they could send them out to people that might want to leave a comment. Or do you have any other comments about that, Greg?
No, I think most of I heard last month, the report, how that went out. So. Yeah.
Did anything change because of the comments?
No.
So Greg reviewed like all the comments. I think there was only one comment that really needed to address. Most of them were just kind of like project specific, like, you know, I like that or related to that. I think there was one that had a question about the functional classification of a road based on FHWA's definition and what it said in the logic database. And I went and checked it, and I could see where why different in those databases, but we base our functional classification off FHWA and their guidance, and in FHWA's guide, it was correct on our map, so we left it the same.
That is a detailed and thorough.
Yes.
You, props to that citizen. for the review. Right, tell her out for a job.
We did receive one comment, it's funny, mention real quick, complaining about the use of stock photos throughout the images. So I went through it because I did probably most of the photography that's in there. And I went through both documents, it was less than 10% we used stock photography. But everything else came from either myself or from the KIT agency, so, we did address.
Did they point out the Barcelona? photo?
Yes, yeah, that was the one.
That's a cool photo. Where's that little? So in conclusion, Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 fully address Transportation Policy Committee guidance, goals, and objectives that have been set out in the last 3 years. That exceeded federal guidance and regulation based on what was required for us to do in developing this NGP. Like complete and good planning practices and contributed to improved transportation in the region. And we will be beginning our next update soon after this one. So it's an ongoing process. We're always working on the next plan. You know, we're always working on the existing plan. And so this will be, it's a living, breathing document that will be amended, I'm sure, many times in the next 4 years. But we'll also be developing, Connecting Kentuckiana 2100, 2060, but, maybe it'll have a whole new name. But we'll be getting that, sooner rather than later, so. Right, so next steps for approval, we received TTCC's recommendation for TTC approval at the May 10th meeting. And so we are requesting action that TPC approve the Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan update.
Any other questions for?
I just wanted to say thank you. I know the tremendous amount of work that goes in, and especially the level of detail that you all just mentioned and taking people's feedback into account. So thank you very much for it. It seems like a good project, and it did make me feel a little old because I think I have some old printed 1960s era documents, and this may be the last one that ever gets printed out. So thank you all.
If it gets printed out, are you gonna print it?
Oh, well, I guess I have to now.
I don't
It's
know.
it's gonna be a vintage antique now.
Any other? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Item number 7 is the Transportation Improvement Program. Chris.
Got a presentation too. So now we'll address the final draft of the fiscal year 23 to 26 tip. Is this also for the long guide? I need edit definitely in particular to the agenda item 8.
Okay.
And so I want to make sure they get in because I changed that. It is not Wednesday, as you know.
Right.
Everyone, it is Thursday and I had that changed, but everything else in this presentation is the same, but just when we get to the next item. I think. So this is this tip is going to be replacing the fiscal year 2020 to 2020 tip. And as many of you are aware, that one will is set to expire June 30th. Some overview. All the projects are consistent with the Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 MTP that's in purchase with her and the statewide transportation improvement programs for Indiana and Kentucky. It's fiscally constrained as required structure that's been that infrastructure. It conforms to the other standards, and we have a list of all the projects, potential contribution to our. these are the sections that we did, and I'm just gonna say up front, we haven't made a lot of changes. We would like to make some changes through amendments coming up soon, but we haven't made a lot of changes since we last drafted that we went over with you all. We've got an introduction section, of course. We go through the TIP processes, the policies, and the development of the TIP. We have our funding source information, our plans and performances. They feature the same goals and objectives as in the FTP with the high scoring TIP projects, as opposed to only the MTP. We have specific reports, of which are the MPO dedicated funds and the listing of obligated debt. The air quality conformity, the status, transportation conformity, regional emissions analysis, and CMAQ eligibility, the certification process, and then a complete list of tendencies. We just have the incidents, participation, performance measures. Some highlights are goals and objectives project rankings. They were evaluated by types, brain agencies, type of university, bike ped, transit, or maintenance. We have one project type per project, which can be complicated because some projects may feel like they fit your two different definitions, but we have to take the frame to be able to score them. Differing product types generally are compared to one another. Just because it wouldn't really make sense to compare program to roadway project or a big project. The location reliance of the scoring matrix offered a few challenges to some of the types of such as you can't really location for things like that. Or for example, like electric vehicle charging stations that may be in the works with multiple locations or to be determined. And maintenance projects are MPO, so therefore they're scored in objective evaluation because they default. Here's our 9 goals that we've had. I'm not really sure when, but at some time before I started at PIPTA, you all approved these 9 goals. And so our objectives are unison with the goals. Each goal is going to have objectives that go along with it. And then we scored each of the projects under that. And in the TIP, we have our making TIP projects for each of the 9 goals and corresponding objectives. We include tables featuring the for the goals and objectives. And then a complete listing of the fiscal year 2023 to 2026 TIP projects. In the table, it's broken down with each section organized by product type, state or regional transit. Tables display the project name, description, justification, the KIPTA ID, the state ID if it has one, the group project ID, county, TIP funding, open to the public date, air quality status, and the project score. The regional maps are per project type. So each section will display a snapshot of the area with the project type layer, and the full project maps are going to be online pending our approval. Right now, we have the 2020 to 2025 TIP projects online, and you can search by KIPTA ID. We'll replace that shortly once we have the approval of this TIP. And here's a little visual of our listing tables to give you all an overview. Our regional maps for project type, similar to this. And of course, all of this is on the link online that has been available to you guys for. In this TIP, we made a few minor changes mainly grammar and typos. We adjusted a mislabeled figure title or two. That's really about it. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna be wanting to do amendments. I'm gonna talk about the First Amendment after this presentation, and we have a few other in queue, as well as very large administrative application in the very near future, so we can amend the TIP after it's approved. Here's a timeline, and leads us up to today. We have up to 60 days to get that federal approval. We can't really predict exactly what day that might land on. Hopefully, as soon as we can get it, because we're hoping to get it soon, as the current TIP is June 30th. So I'm asking for action to submit the final of the fiscal year 2023 to 2026 TIP approval.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, we're paying attention. Motion second.
Second.
Wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, these are subject to federal approval, which we hope to get in the next 30 days.
Okay,
Well, that'd be great, yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, great, an amendment, what we did,
Yeah,
providing that we get the federal.
Yeah. contingent upon the federal.
Come on, here it comes.
That'll be good. All right, so now I will talk about our First Amendment. And I do believe we did address this a little bit in preparation for this amendment previously. So this amendment is going to be on federal approval of the TIP document that we just discussed. Here we go. So I've got a schedule here. A few things have changed, but initially our intention when we presented Amendment 1 out for public review, we were considering some previous dates because Amendment 1 is composed of projects that were all in the current TIP's Amendment 9. Amendment 9 was already approved due to an error. Those projects made it into the new MTP, but they did not make it into the current TIP that is under review for
That's right,
today.
that's right. We discovered that while the new TIP was out for its public review back in
Yes.
April.
Yeah, so that's why those December dates are in there. Public comment period for Amendment 1 was just recently, it was April to May 10th. We sent the comments to you all on May 11th, and we got the TTCC recommendation also on May 10th. However, we had in another IAC meeting on May 17th, and the intention of that meeting was to talk about amendments 2 and 3, which will be talked about at TPC at a later date. And Amendment 1 came up during that meeting. So we had to make a few adjustments to the Amendment 1 as it was during the public comment period. We had to take a non-exempt project out as a result of that IAC meeting. Do you want to elaborate?
That's right. So, well, that one project, for those that are wondering what project, it's a major project. It's the I-64 Outer Travel Lane project in southern Indiana. And so that will be addressed at a later date. At this time, it looks like that will be addressed simply through the amendment 3, which there'll be more on that coming up here in about 5 minutes. But the other rest of the projects remain the same. That is, there were 8, now there are 7 that we're presenting to you today. The ones that are 7 are exempt. By exempt, those who don't remember, exempt from the air quality conformity analysis. Okay, so these are, they don't need the full model run and whatnot. And so what we found out on May 17th, we were alerted by EPA that are in Kentucky, but not in Indiana. Our attainment status for the 2015 ozone standard, even though the air monitors have had clean data and have had clean data for years now, our status has bumped up from marginal to moderate. I'll leave that there. And so that requires us, we were informed just last week, to do a 2023 analysis of any future amendments that require their quality conformity analysis. We don't have a 2023 when we have the ones that we were required to create. We got that sprung on us last week, okay? And so therefore, we cannot rely on a previous analysis because any subsequent analysis, any future ones, including this amendment, must recognize 2023. And frankly, there's no time from last week till today to make that happen. The first time we will do that is going to be for amendment 3, and I'll have more on that here in a moment.
Is marginal to moderate worse air quality? Like going the wrong direction?
It is,
Okay.
but it's a procedural thing.
Okay,
Indiana, the powers that be in Indiana have approved the maintenance SIP. So that we have clean data, the air is clean, right? And the air is clean. It meets the standard now. Indiana approved their stuff before Kentucky has. So if we await Kentucky's, we're in a bad spot on the Kentucky side, but not Indiana, which is.
is it 2 different EPA regions?
It is.
Okay,
It is, although everything we've ever done, including a regional air quality conformity MOU of our IAC partners, has always been one region, one budget, one place. EPA has split us into 2 in this regard. So I'll leave that there for now.
So I'm gonna go through the slides of the projects that are in it, and I also want to add, and I'll take any questions at the end, because I know that this is a bit of a confusing amendment. It's complicated, but there was 9 projects in Amendment 9, initially 8 in Amendment 1, and then 7. And the other missing project was a removal of a project, and that happened in the tip, so we didn't have to include that one. Okay, just do a little bit bigger. This is KIPTA IV 3192. Like I said, all of these changes were approved in Amendment 9. This is a new project, the INDOT project. And we want to make sure it gets into the new tip. This one is another INDOT project, 3193. 3194.
You know, all these projects are exempt. They're bridge improvements, they're intersection improvements, they're intersection improvements, you know. Again, these projects aren't required to be part of the formal analysis, even though they have big, dollar figures next to their name. It's very expensive to rehab a bridge these days, namely I-65 bridges. It's very expensive.
3195. And then we have some KYTC, we have 3196. And 37. And 38. So those are all of the projects that are fit in. And I'm going to ask for action on this to approve it for the new tip, contingent on federal approval of the new tip. Does anyone have any questions?
will there be a quiz on this amendment process? Then I don't have any questions.
that we stipulate, that the motion that hopefully gets made here in a second says that. So that the minutes will always say that this amendment, we've been told, that this amendment is indeed contingent, as Chris said, on the approval, because we don't have that approval, we won't for some period of, several weeks here, so it is contingent on that.
I'll be glad to make the motion to move forward to pass this amendment number 1.
Yeah.
To the 2050 tip,
Or 2023 to 2026.
the 2023 to 2026 tip, contingent on the approval of that tip being approved by federal agencies.
That's a fantastic motion.
Thank you.
Did I hear a second? I have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Number 9 is the proposed amendment to schedule to the 23-26 transportation improvement program.
All right, so that'll be me, and we'll bring it up just in case we thought that, you'd heard enough about a tip, let's keep going. And so as Chris mentioned, we do have several amendments in motion right now. We have 3 in particular. Amendment 1 was what we just approved. Okay. That included Amendment 9 changes, as we called it, to the last tip. Okay, that made TPC adoption. That just happened a moment ago. What we've envisioned is that Amendment 2 will be another exempt project amendment. Just like Amendment 1 was, remember those were all exempt. So these are quicker approval processes. That's the reason to do that, by the way. That we'll bring that to you all in June. And then in July, again, until you get sick of us, we're going to bring one more to you, Amendment 3. That'll be a full amendment. Okay. And so the July amendment will include all the projects that are non-exempt. Therefore, they need to be a part of that new regional emissions analysis that I mentioned a moment ago. All the projects for Amendments 2 and 3 were due to us earlier this month. And the intention behind these amendments was not to get a bunch of new projects. It clearly wasn't, and I hope we've been clear about that. This is the amendment or the series of amendments 2 and 3 that for the projects that have been waiting through this update cycle. We have a moratorium in essence on amendments, right? Because we've been updating our TIP and MTP over the last several months. And so these are the projects that we've received that we've kind of had on deck or in waiting. And so we're going to get those in there as soon as we can. And so that's why we have the multiple amendment approach. We'll get the Amendment 2 projects in there if all goes well quickly but a quicker approval process, right? These are 1 month apart, but the approval could be perhaps 3 months apart, okay? Because it's quicker to do the exempt amendment versus the non-exempt amendment. Next slide, please. So here's a schedule that shows a little bit. I don't go all the way through this, but again, Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 are attached at the hip. Same deadlines. We've got 10 projects total, 7 of which are exempt. Those 7 will be a part of Amendment 2. Amendment 2's public comment period just started yesterday, and it's ongoing right now. And again, we'll have that for you guys next month. Amendment 3 will have 3 projects, all of which are non-exempt. Those projects, for those that are wondering, is that I-64 added travel lanes project in southern Indiana over in Floyd County. The I-65 added travel lanes project that spans the northernmost, I want to say 5, 6, 7 miles in Clark County and extends into Scott County, Indiana, outside of the region. And then the third project is the Reimagine High Street project. That project is non-exempt, even though the change is to its funding. The IEC determined that all non-exempt projects need this analysis, or they can't rely on a previous emissions analysis for reasons I just mentioned earlier, the 2023 issue. So that project gets lumped in with those other 2, even though it's very different. It's non-exempt, not for the older version of that we know, but the newer version has Muhammad Ali and Chestnut becoming 2-way roads. And so therefore that's a non-exempt project change. And so those 3 projects will be in Amendment 3, while Amendment 2 will have all the other projects that we have kind of on deck waiting. That's all I have this time on that. Again, we'll have more information, at next month's, we'll have amendment 2 for you. And again, we're getting these projects in there as fast as we can. We're putting them in we're putting 7 of them in the fast lane, we're putting 3 in the slow lane. We would put them in the fast lane too if we could, and we tried, frankly, we tried at that meeting last week. We tried, we sold it the best we could, but we knew that we needed that full amendment. And our IC confirmed that, so that's where we are. That concludes my amendment 9, or excuse me, our agenda 9 talk.
Okay, no action is required on
No,
that.
sir.
Okay. Item number 10, Indiana dedicated funding.
Okay.
Andy again.
This is me again, and this is strictly pertaining to our Indiana friends. And this is gonna be a tough one. So here we go. Back in every quarter, we host a quarterly review meeting, and we hosted one of those on March 24th over in Clarksville. And at that meeting, we bring together all of the Indiana LPAs, the municipalities and counties, and TARC, and NDOT, to discuss the quarterly updates of our process, of our administration of our use it or lose it fund. Remember the use it and lose it term we always talk about here? That's where we figure out how to use it so we don't lose it, basically, right? So at that meeting, we reached consensus on moving some money around. It was on March 24th. And we knew at that time that Clarksville had a Riverside Drive project that was going to an April letting on April 12th. And that project went to an April 12th letting. And everybody was worried, Clarksville included, was worried that that project would not get awarded because everybody, all the bids are higher. And in Indiana state law said you can't award it if it's more than, I believe, 15% above the estimate. And it was way above the estimates. So it was unawardable. Therefore, that was on April 12th, by the way. That freed up 1.7 million of our STBG money in Indiana, use it or lose it money, if you will. That project, very importantly, had $1.2 million in change of CRISA money. CRISA is, for those who don't remember, that's one of the coronavirus stimulus sections of funds. The 1.7 of MPO controlled money, 1.2 million of CRISA money. So that project needs to move out of 2023 into 2024. And so that money came free. So at last month's meeting of the TPC on April 27th, you all approved the moves that were discussed at that meeting. Okay, the money moves of those projects. East Main in New Albany got some money. Blackston Mill project in Clarksville got some money. And we talked, and then there's a move on Stacy Road Roundabout in Clark County. You all approved that. Chris submitted that administrative modification within minutes of that meeting ending on April 27th. On May 10th, there was a special letting. NDOT did a letting in May. They usually don't, of the LPA project. And on May 10th, a project called Montgomery Avenue, 9th Street, Montgomery Avenue in Clarksville, 9th Street, Jeffersonville. It went to a May letting. It was its second crack at a letting because, as I understand it, it was unawardable the first time, so it went again. And so it was awardable in the end. That project was overmatched by a lot. Clarksville and Jeffersonville were kicking in more money than the 80-20 split. At our March 24th meeting, we had a contingency plan in place that said, if money gets free from Riverside Drive, we will apply that money to these other projects. And we will apply that money to Montgomery Avenue to make it whole and to whittle down the use it or lose it. Okay. Yesterday morning, we had a meeting, some of you all were there, with our Indiana LPA group, which included NDOT staff. And we said, hey, tomorrow at TPC, we're going to be bringing you all that change. We're going to be moving about $1 million from Riverside Drive to Montgomery Avenue. Consensus was reached. We're in good shape. Got a call yesterday morning after that meeting from NDOT. And got some news, got the following news. They notified us of two things. Both are important. One might even have consequences in Kentucky. NDOT, it's our understanding that NDOT has been informed by Federal Highway Administration that any unspent CRISA dollars are going to get clawed back immediately if they're not obligated by the end of this month.
Regardless of the debt ceiling or only of the debt ceiling?
It seemingly has to do with what's going on in Washington with Congress, okay? So we had $1.2 million in the name of Riverside Drive that needed to move to 2024. It was safe there. We were going to approve that administrative modification today. It was going to be safe in 2024. The deadline on those dollars, as was established years ago, was September 30th of 2024. To get ahead of that, NDOT has taken those dollars as to not lose those dollars. And what they have done, they have applied them to Montgomery Avenue. That's fine. That's good. That project can go on. The Montgomery Avenue project, will, like I said, will go on, but that leaves a giant, massive hole for next year for our program. The CRISA dollars are gone. Yesterday, they're gone. That's not good news. But wait, it gets worse. All of the moves that we made and were approved last month in April, that we submitted to NDOT via admin mod and KYTC, 215, or Thursday last month, Chris went back and sent them as soon as she walked out of here. We were told yesterday that all of those money moves are void. All of those moves are gone. So, what does that mean? That means that administrative modification 45 is voided in terms of the Indiana money moves. Well, you might ask, furthermore, what does that mean? That means that $387,000 that was going to the name of, or so, a good chunk of money, several $100,000 going to the East Main project is not there. It's gone. Too late, is what we were told. So that's going to have to be funded some other way, locally funded. Same thing for Blackston Mill. Blackston Mill had a couple $100,000 also. That we, again, our money moves, when money came free for Riverside Drive, we put money at all these other projects. And we did it as soon as we could. Remember the dates. We found out in April 12th that it was not awardable. So that broke free. So we acted as soon as we could. But it did not get there in time for NDOT's purposes. So we were working our butts off to get whittle down our unspent balance, use it or lose it down. We got it to 292,000, 3.5% of our, 3.6% of our beginning of the year amount. That's pretty good given all the things that happened. With these changes, we are about to give back to NDOT $2.9 million. $2.9 million in an era where there's trillions of dollars of need, billions of dollars of need in our region, money thrown at us from all the different directions. $2 million are going to go unspent. And that's not good. And we know that. You all know that. And it's devastating. That means that projects that we awarded more funding to don't get that funding anymore. As stewards of the money, that nothing pisses us off more than that. I want to be clear about that. And so Blackston Mill, East Main, those aren't getting money anymore. The Stacy Road Roundabout in Clark County, it should be fine because it's a move that's not kind of outside the purview of this. But the CRISA money has been clawed back immediately. I said Kentucky implications. If that happens in Kentucky, I think there are implications on River Road, to the tune of $6 million, CRISA dollars. I think TARC has some stimulus money still involved too. That's something. So again, there is no action, but we're going to have a follow-up meeting with our Indiana LPAs probably next week. Again, we had consensus yesterday about what we needed to do, and that all changed an hour later. And it's pretty as much devastating news. $2.9 million. Again, we had it whittled down. And that is $2.9 million that we might have other opportunities. About the only thing that we can do right now is maybe work with TARC and maybe get some funding in that regard. So there are options there. But, and we have till June 30th to do that, to be clear. But I want to make everybody know that KIPTA is very frustrated with this process. The staff are very frustrated with this process. And I think it's important that we had this conversation here. We will be working with with our Indiana friends. We can't let, y'all know this more than I do. We can't let this happen again. It hurts you all it hurts you all tremendously. And I appreciate that it stings so much to you guys. We've got to do something. We can't do these lettings in the spring, is a long story short. We have to do fall and winter lettings. Otherwise, we're going to be in this circumstance again until things stabilize, at least, you know. So it's really frustrating on our end. I'll be happy to answer any questions I can. I don't have all the answers. Again, some of this I just found out about it literally yesterday afternoon or late yesterday morning. So I'll leave that there unless there are any questions.
Andy, this is Kevin.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, this stings. This really stings. What can be done at the legislative end of this?
I think that's a conversation I really want to have with maybe you in particular and your counterparts as well too. But Clarksville gets hurt the most by this. There's no denying that. There's zero denying that. I can't answer that question. I wish I could.
At what level was this decision made? Within NDOT, or was this a higher decision?
Our understanding that it was made by NDOT, upper level staff at NDOT, yes. Yes. Yeah, the timing things, again, NDOT staff was at the meeting at your office, right? Next door to where you're sitting and talking to us from. They were there. NDOT staff were at yesterday morning's meeting also.
Kevin, this is Kathy McAlpin at NDOT. This use it or lose it rule has been in effect for over 12 years. Nothing has changed. The only thing that was different this year was the COVID money. We received notification from Indiana's Division of Federal Highway to immediately get any unobligated COVID relief funds spent if we wanted them, because of that was one of the items on the debt ceiling limit issue. And so NDOT worked to get all of those funds programmed where we could put them so they wouldn't be lost. And I know Andy and I spoke at length yesterday for over an hour. With the 2.9 million he's referring to, and I know most MPOs who do not spend down their funding have the option to transfer those to transit, which I think Andy's had his conversations with TARC, which I'm not sure that's a doable thing, but anyway, that's a different story. But as far as the use it and lose it scenario, that hasn't changed in years. The only thing different was the loss of the COVID funding, which Congress has the authority to pull that back at any time. And if you wait, according to what Indiana's division told us, was that if you wait to obligate those funds, it's too late. So once they reach that agreement, if they reach that agreement, they pull those funds back, and it's got to be so far along in the system before they will, they won't pull them back. So that's why Indiana did what they did. I know that doesn't help you, but I'm just explaining what the situation was.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's clear we're gonna, we'll convene probably next week, another emergency meeting. Not that yesterday's meeting was an emergency meeting, but a group meeting, same group. And we'll talk more about this and see what we can do. And I'll be talking to Carrie and TARC staff, presumably about this too going forward. But if I might, we need to conclude the thing pretty soon. So let's keep moving. We can continue this
Do you
discussion.
need action?
No, sir.
Okay,
So action is no longer requested given the sequence of events yesterday.
Number 11, administrative modification 45th
Okay,
to the 5th.
so administrative modification 46, it was about 25 KYTC projects, bridge projects, and high friction surface projects. And this is the information only. if anyone would like to see, we could pull them up on the website. Otherwise, I'm just, you know.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Director's
Yeah, I'll go real quick. Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. We got our legal approval this week or earlier last week. RFP was posted on yesterday. Responses are due by consultants by June 28th. We sent out invoices, should have got an invoice from me probably in the last 2 weeks or so, seeking that local match up front. We'll probably get that going this summer. Proud report, staff report wise, this time next month, there will be two new KIPTA MPO planners, so you'll hopefully meet them next month. That's awesome, right? Those of you that have FY 2023 contracts for planning studies and otherwise, traffic counting and metro and otherwise, we need those invoices by early July. If you're waiting to the last minute to send us the whole thing at once, it's fine, I suppose. Wish you wouldn't, but that's okay. It may take us a little bit longer to get those reimbursements to you because we have to get that reimbursement if you're sending us giant check, giant invoice. May 26th, tomorrow, applications are due to KIPTA for those PL studies that I mentioned last month. I've talked to a couple agencies that sound like they're interested. I want to acknowledge a few people. First, Rob Stevens from TARP, Chief Operations Officer. Do I have that right, Carrie? I want to thank him for joining us. Mikkel Pelfrey, Tom Hall, and Isidro Delgado for joining us from KYTC. But on the TPC and TTCC front, or excuse me, on the TIP and MTP front, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank Greg and our GIS staff for making those documents look so good. Okay. I want to thank Jarrett, who's not in the room, but I want to thank him for his support. I want to thank the past KIPTA staff, some of which are on this call, by the way. I want to thank them for their getting us to where they got us to on these documents. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank Chris and Spencer and Jeremy and Mick and Gina, who's on the call, all the current KIPTA staff. This has been tricky to get us to where we are today. And I want to thank each and every one of those people for getting us there. It hadn't been easy. It's been some serious on the job training for these folks. And I hope you all appreciate their hard work as much as I do. And I want to thank TPC and yours for dinner support. So with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other business to come? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, we're adjourned.